these tours, you know, Japan and Europe many times, and we went to Australia and all over the States. And so we had amazing tours, and I had great shows, and we had so many fun times. So it was easy for me. It was always easy because it was, you know, it was an Anthrax, and Anthrax was just a much bigger band than Armored Saint, even at its lowest level.
The touring cycle for Sound of White Noise started off amazing. Slowly but surely, you know, it wasn't that steep of a slope yet. But by '94, we went out and did another headline run of the States. We had Fight, Halford's band, opening for us, which was amazing. But we're playing like venues half the size that we were on the previous year tour in the summer of '93. So in like 10, 11 months, things got really weird.
And music was changing, remember? I love music, but I hate this fucking business. You know, it is. The music business is pathetic, but I love music.
We figured, all right, well, it's the end of the album cycle. We're not going to sweat it. We're going to go write a new album now. And we already had some of the songs, some of the riffs and ideas for Stomp, and we were really stoked on them. So we figured we've got this brutal record we're going to make. So we've got nothing to worry about.
It was a weird time for us, to be honest with you. The heavy metal was a bad name at that time, you know? That's the time when, you know, the gatekeepers were, you know, well, you can't come in here because you play that type of stuff, and it was all about alternative.
The metal thing, we're like, what do you mean the metal? You say that like it's bad, you know? It's just something we're not getting here, you know? I personally didn't understand that grunge was the death knell for heavy metal. Like in one fell swoop, that the 90s were going to be like, most metal was going to be done for a while. Be put into a forced hibernation. Yeah, if only it was that easy. Forced hibernation would have been better than what we went through.
It was a weird time. It was a very weird time for us. We just had to, you know, ride it out. It was gonna come back. You just didn't know when. A lot of metal bands at the time succumbed to a certain form, and they changed their format a bit too. But at the end of the day, we were always kind of flying the flag of metal. And in Europe, they always stayed true to what they loved, and that's the thing, man, about metal. As soon as you go a little bit this way, it's like, no, bring it back, you know?
So then we go into Stomp, right? Okay, so much changes to go to Stomp. Philadelphia, Butcher Brothers, Conshohocken, Pennsylvania, it was like Mayberry. I had a lot of fun recording that record. Working with the Butcher Brother guys, it was a lot of fun, and you know, they had a lot of success of their own. You know, we kind of introduced them to metal a little bit, you know, because they were doing like Fuji's records and stuff.
In a Zone picked up this record, put on freaking In a Zone. It is freaking good. It's just, it's so fucking In a Zone. It's freaking good. It's good. It's more than good.
We recorded it in a zone.
We did.
95 too. We are in a lovely town outside of Philadelphia called Conshohocken.
Right.
It's an old Indian town. M9 Shyamalan.
That picture of the band was taken right 20 feet above us is the Great American Pub. And there you go. That was the band sitting at the bar at the Great American Pub.
It is just a characteristic of being in a band, certainly being in a band that lasts for decades. One of the rarest things is to see a band with its original lineup 10, 20, 30, 40 and counting years in.
Danny's a great guy, and he's a great player. Great player, great innovative player, you know. But again, business is business and that happened.
Like, I felt during the last part of the years with Danny Spitz that him and I grew kind of closer, and we worked, you know, a lot together.
He certainly still had his freedom to create his solos, but by that point, Charlie, I know for certain that you could ask Charlie, but I know for sure the solo and only was pretty much a solo that Charlie had come up with the main melodic parts for and showed them to Danny.
And there was for a while, we just felt that Danny didn't want to be here anymore. And it was just, and he even said, I don't want to be here. He wasn't into it as much as he once was. I think he was going through some stuff too in his head.
After the whole Sound of White Noise album cycle was done, and we started writing for songs that would become Stomp 442, the guy he never showed up. It was more so he took himself out of the band. We weren't looking to get rid of Danny at the end of Sound of White Noise. We started writing that record, and over a course of, 6 months or something, 7 months, when we were in Yonkers at our studio working on songs for Stomp, I think he showed up 2 times. We were there 5 days a week working. He showed up 2, maybe 3 times. He'd pick up a cassette demo of what we'd be working on and then leave, and we wouldn't hear from the dude again. Or maybe we'd get a tape with some lead ideas, which we couldn't even understand what song, we're like, what songs are you playing to? Because these solos, because he wasn't there. It was the first time he wasn't a part of the unit when we were working on an album and in the room sweating it out and banging it out and arranging and getting in fights and everything else and making a record. He obviously doesn't want to be here.
For me, it sucked, when we parted ways with him. Everybody felt that too, We don't want to lose this guy who's been there, through it all.
He removed himself. And, looking back on it, certainly over the years, I have had time to look at that. And, he was the first one to have a child out of all of us. He had his first child around that time. Of course, having a son of my own now, I can understand. But in 1994, I didn't understand at all. All I knew is the lead guitar player of the band didn't show up.
I always felt maybe he would, go and then kind of maybe feel it again, get that feeling of, I want to do this type of thing. And, maybe that would happen.
And he actually told us, the words came out of his mouth at some point after Stomp was done. Oh, this was years later, in 2005 when we did the reunion shows with him and Joey in 2005. It was somewhere along the lines, that far down the road. He said to us, you guys knew I had lost the passion for it before I did. You guys knew it, you sensed it, you knew. And I thought it was really cool because he was being really honest about where he was in his life.
And those guys, the 4 of them are continuing on. I love them so much. I miss them. I always give them all the credit in the world to keep it going, man. They kept it going without me. I bowed out and I do what I do. I'm a crazy ass master watchmaker. I create a different kind of art, but the life we lived in the 80s and the 90s, you can't live today. It was a whole different era, a whole different time without the internet, without our interconnection. It really was brotherhood. It really was love. Love between band members, love between fan and band members. It was beyond what I think we can explain to this generation of today. Look what it's done, man. Not just us, the big 4.
We were aware of it, but I guess the thing, we weren't going to let it get in the way, and the reality is it did. It was, it really didn't affect it, really didn't affect it too much at all. On some level, it allowed Scott to be just free to play what he wanted to play and not worry about, I got to leave a space for, and we have to play off each other or anything.
You have lineup changes along the way. The fucking Beatles had lineup changes before they became those 4 guys. Not to compare us to the Beatles in any way, shape, or form, other than the fact that we both are bands and we had some lineup changes. And that's it.
People get Stomp 442 and Sgt. Pepper confused too.
All the time.
All the time.
It's one incredible. Has fixing a hole, and the other one has
my hole is fixed.
No,
I don't think so. No, wait.
Who played Paul Crook? Filled in.
Stomp 442 pre-production, Yonkers, New York. I used to go there a lot. I'd just hang or help out whenever I could. One day I showed up, and at the 4-track was Charlie by himself. He asked me to put a solo down because he hadn't seen Danny in a while. So I did. I didn't think anything of it. Months later, now they're in Pennsylvania recording Stomp 442, and my phone rings, it's Charlie. He told me to get in my car and come down and play guitar. I didn't ask any questions.
Yeah, don't forget about Paul Crook. We should mention Paul Crook, who's still an awesome player and a good friend, and a big family member to Anthrax also. So we've been very fortunate. So please don't forget about Paul Crook also. So we've been very fortunate with players.
I got right to work when I arrived at the studio in Pennsylvania. I brought one guitar and I used Scott's rig. I managed to record 4 solos in about 2 hours. Charlie was there the whole time, like right here, and Scott was just kind of walking around. And both of them were very supportive, had amazing ideas, and really helped the process move quickly.
We kind of go on as a 4-piece. Paul Crook kind of comes in to help, but he's not officially in the band.
Speaking for myself, it felt very natural for me to step in. I don't know how they feel. Even to this day, I've never asked them. But, as a roadie, all we did was jam. At sound checks, we jammed. Backstage, there was always a jam room with amps and a drum kit. We were playing backstage constantly. Off tour, I was jamming with the guys. So it just felt very organic for me. It was always a lot of fun.
I want to give Paul Crook a lot of props because he really did, whether it was engineering, writing, recording, he was touring, he did some great things, and I love Paul dearly as a person. We had a good time. They had a cool studio. It was great. They had this really killer studio there. Dimebag was there.
On a couple of records, Dimebag Darrell played on a couple of songs for us, 3 or 4 songs for us in the past. So that was an honor, and just, one of those things that you keep in your heart forever.
That was a great time. He flew into Philadelphia, spent like 24 or 48 hours and played his lead, and we went down to the bar and lit the bar on fire. It was a great time.
Stomp, again, another record, I think underrated. Promotion in this business, right? I'm proud of us with that record. I think we came up with a great record around maybe a different time for music. Again, it's about promotion and all that fun business stuff that, again, at the end of the day, you have to deal with. You could write the best record ever. It doesn't matter. If it doesn't get promoted, nobody hears it. And it's so the only way, I don't judge music like that. I don't judge albums like that by the success of it. I just listen to the actual songs and say, how good are these songs? And if you listen to that record, I think it's just as good as anything we've done.
I must say, Stomp I wanted to work with Storm, who has done some of my all-time favorite album covers, and the concept, when he sent it to me, I was just blown away. I'm like, you're gonna do this? You're gonna create this fucking ball of metal? He's like, yes, and he did it. To this day, I think that's still one of my favorite album covers, though. It's iconic, and if you have the vinyl version, the cassette version, the CD, it's all different. The covers are different. The guy's an artist, and that's all I can say. When you look at his album covers, you just know that should be in a museum because it's just beautiful. I always thought Audio Slave took our cover. And I was like, that looks a lot like Stomp. Wow. And I think Storm did that one too.
We made this record, but in that time, Elektra goes through major upheaval. They get rid of Bob Krasnow, who's like the man of Elektra, and bring in this woman, Sylvia Rohn, and cut Steve Rabowski, who was the guy who signed Anthrax to the deal, and he was gone after the first album, and a lot of employees. We're in the meeting, we finished the record, we're sitting there with our new management and Sylvia, and we're excited. It's a follow-up record. And basically she tells us, I don't know if this is verbatim, but she basically says, I would not have done the deal with Anthrax if I was in place here. She said that to us. As we're listening to our new record or delivering it, we're like, what? Like, number one, it's a weird thing to say. It's just some band that you're just putting out another record. And we're like, wow. So, right away we're like, this isn't gonna be good.
As weird as the 90s were professionally, because after Sound of White Noise, it really was a slippery, steep slope for Anthrax. And as shitty as that was, for me personally, I had opened this other door in my life that I walked through with John Bush, right? From like 93 to like 06 or something. I was hitting it pretty hard. Of course, after Daryl, you know, had his way with me, I was a professional drinker. The song Fueled was 100% about that. It was a lot of fun, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So whereas before on Persistence, whereas professionally everything was unbelievable, like incredible, but for me personally everything was shit. Now here we are. Professionally things are going to shit, and personally I'm having a fucking blast.
Volume 8, it barely came out.